Hi folks, Des Pheby here and welcome to this new episode of The Franchise Entrepreneur. This week's episode is going to be a bit different since we have our very first guest. Laura has started her hospitality business, which has become very popular in Chester, and she's now considering her next step. So we shall be discussing that. Now this was meant to be a single 30-minute episode, but we realised we had so much to talk about and we lost a bit of track of time, so we're going to divide it into two parts and release the second one next week.
Right, hello. Sorry, I was a bit distracted
You're right.
then.
Okay.
Trying to get out the building, 8 things, a million things going on.
So what I thought we'd do is just have a general conversation about business, how you're getting on, what your sort of idea was behind Meltdown and where you see it going, and just, you know, general chit chat. I'll kind of jump in with where I've come from and my background as well. So
Okay.
this is pretty new to me. We've only just been doing the podcast for probably about 3 months now, and you are the very first time or first person we've done any kind of interview with.
Okay.
And the reason I wanted to do this was because, one, you've got quite a following in Chester, and this place has become a kind of a go-to place. And
Thought the focus wasn't going to be on me.
it's not going to be on you specifically, but just, you know, the kind of how a business starts or how a small business starts, and what the mentality behind you is, and what and where you see it going in the future, and what you want from it. So I mean, it's just general. We can talk, you know, in general, and then we'll just pick and choose stuff from it.
All right.
So I mean, it'd be a bit about me talking about, you know, where I've come from, and also, you know, if there was anything that I could ever do to help you on, if you ever consider franchising, because that's kind of my background now.
Yeah, no, so tells me.
So my background, or where I originated from, how long have you been in Chester?
On and off,
Right.
35 years.
Oh, right, okay. So I've been in Chester 20 years. So I moved up from down south. So still got the accent. And I started a business called Go Fresco.
Yeah, okay.
So that was started off as a sandwich bar. Couldn't make money from that because I had Subway open up next to me within a year, and then all these coffee shops started opening up. So I ended up turning that into a late night place, selling pizzas and kebabs, and that gave me then the opportunity to go into doing something like Walk and Go. But that was an accident. So
Isn't it always?
Yeah, I mean that's what it seems to be. You know, when you talk to people, it's you don't necessarily set out to go down that road, but you end up there somehow. So is that what happened with?
I mean, I've always worked in hospitality, so it's always been hospitality for me. But as for my own business, it was never clear. You know, I haven't spent 20 years going, I can't wait until I can open my own cheese toastie cafe. On the contrary, I never thought I'd be opening my own business because I just thought it wasn't a possibility, you know, really. I was in London for 15 years, so it wasn't. Right. And then when I came back, and then the shop kind of came to me, to be honest. So it was good timing. I'd literally just quit my job because that's it. I can't do 40 nowadays.
So I know you worked, or you started at Barno.
That's right.
So
yeah,
you helped
I opened a Barno free, and
So then this place just kind of came available, and you just went, I'm doing a cheese toastie.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I've always been front of house, never in the kitchen, so it had to be something that was easy to execute. You know, I didn't want to spend £35,000 a year on a head chef who's, you know, undoubtedly also going to be a psycho. So, you know, I wanted to keep it really easy, non-perishable, you know, something that, you know, I think I just didn't feel arrogant enough that I could go and do, you know, barn me or whatever, you know. So it needed to be something quite simple. But at the same time, this is something I've always done at home. You know, I've always cooked a toastie in butter, in a pan, properly at home. So there's a link to that anyway. It's something I did, you know.
Yeah, see, my background came from something completely different. I came from an accounting background, and I actually made a conscious decision to do the first sort of Go Fresco as a sandwich bar coffee shop because I actually thought it was going to be easy, which was obviously a big mistake. Because it isn't easy at all, and if it's you, everything comes down to you. So it's like you can't hide in a corporate business. No. Well, you can hide in a corporate business, but you can't hide in it when it's your business.
Yeah,
because
you can't cut corners and think, oh, yeah, I'll sack that until I get in trouble for it.
Well, it's all about you, isn't it? And I've seen on your reviews is like, you know, some of the highest in Chester, and that's got to be because of you, because you're here and you're investing your time in here, and it's a reflection not just on your product. It's a reflection on you as well.
It's an experience, is what it is. Ultimately, it's a cheese toastie, and that's all it is, food-wise. So that can only be so good in theory, but it's the whole experience that comes with it, sort of from being greeted when they walk in, and I guess just the general personality of the building. Obviously, that stemmed from me, but I've had other people in here who have managed to do that. Usually alongside me. That's the fear, is if I wasn't in here, whether people would still want a piece of me.
Yeah. Well, that's what I found really difficult when I created Walk and Go, because Walk and Go is like my baby. That's my main business. I sold, obviously, Go Fresco years ago. But the moment that started to grow, so we opened up 2 in Chester, and then we went to Liverpool and opened up 2 in there. There's no one else's money involved. There's no other partners involved in it. The moment you back away from the business and you become reliant on other people to have your values and your customer service, it's difficult, and you get let down, and it doesn't happen. I go through our scores on our customer service, and you look at it and you just go, oh, shit. There's some that just that's not how I want it. And you can train staff as much as you want, but the moment you're away from it, there's a real fear and also the realisation that it's never going to be at that kind of level.
Not everybody's got to put the passion into it that you do by any stretch of the imagination. There's the occasional member of staff you fall upon who will perform as well as you do, but it's rare.
Yeah, and they're kind of gold dust, and you
especially in hospitality, especially in this country, sadly, where it's still looked upon as an industry that you work in when you're not good enough to do anything else. I think that's different.
Yeah, and I think. Well, no, it's a good conversation, because it is something that we've come across. Obviously, we've now got 20 stores in the UK, and finding the right staff for it that want to work in hospitality is difficult. But what we've seen is, whether it's because of Brexit and it's made it more difficult to employ overseas staff, the standards are starting to get a little bit better, because we're having to pay more money. We're having to train people better, because they won't stay with you.
Yeah.
Because everyone's trying to steal each other's staff.
Yeah.
Everyone tries to steal our chefs. We train them on the wots, and then before we know it, they've gone off to some sort of buffet place, and we've spent 6 months training them.
Yeah.
So
longevity isn't the thing, is it, with your staff in this industry?
So I think it's slowly but surely changing, that the industry is starting to care more for its employees.
I think the employees are under more competition as well, because ultimately they want to work in the cool coffee shops or whatever, and if they don't have the skills to do so, then they're not going to get in. I always find it really interesting in this country that people come and apply in a coffee shop, but they don't have any coffee skills.
Yeah.
In Australia, which is where I'm from,
right.
You'll go and you'll pay for a course so you can be trained as a barista, and then you'll put it on your CV. I've taken the trouble to get trained, and then you'll get a job. If you don't bother, then throw your CV in the bin. And the mentality here is like, just rock up and be like,
that was me.
Yeah.
I turned up on my cafe and I went, I do coffees, no problem. And then for the first 6 months, I was scared of the coffee machine.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. It's like this bloody steam coming out of it, it's making all these funny noises, and it's like burnt my hand, and it's like I've got milk spurting all over the place. I'm going, shit, I don't know how to do this.
It's a big deal as well, isn't it? It's such a huge industry. I've got a guy on trial tomorrow who's a chef, and he's a trained chef. But I've told him, if you can't nail the coffee machine, then there's no job for you, because here sometimes we run solo, but it's also all hands on deck.
Yeah.
So if you can't make me a flat white, then it doesn't matter if he's been in the kitchen 20 years, it's no good to me.
Yeah.
So he's terrified.
Were you always the front of the house person? Or?
Yeah, always front of house, yeah. My parents had restaurants, and worked for them, and then went off to London, ran pubs. Well, I did a bit of both, actually, a bit of West End school management, worked for Oliver Payton for a few years, and then went to pubs.
Right.
And then
see, I've always been the back of house. I think it's because the face may scare a few people. But it's that intense look I probably give people. And I've never been a front of house person, so I've always tried to make sure that whoever I employ is someone who's got more of a personality and is happy to be out on the front.
Yeah. Do you know, that can be one of the hardest things to find, because you cannot train that. You can't train somebody to be friendly or have a personality, or just have that inbuilt sense of, if somebody sat there and said, can I have tomato ketchup, and we don't have tomato ketchup, somebody would think, well, I'll just go to the shop next door. You'd be amazed how many members of staff, like, that wouldn't occur to them, just to be able to, no, I haven't got any, it's finished.
No, we've had people who have been really efficient, but they've got no personality or they've got no smile on the face. And I can identify that because I can picture myself in there and say, right, I definitely don't want me in the front of the house, so I need someone that's got the bubbly personality.
Yeah.
But equally, you want them to be good at what they do.
Yeah.
It's great having a bubbly personality, but if you're putting all the wrong orders through and all the rest of it, then it's
sometimes that bubbly personality again in hospitality goes with the party mentality, which doesn't necessarily work.
Yeah, it's been a real eye opener for me, and also, you know, like then expanding it, it's another learning curve once you get to that point as well. So what about you? What's your plans on what you intend to do with Meltdown?
I'm definitely at the stage now where I'm starting to think about a second unit, because, you know, I make just about to make a living now, but, you know, if I'm going to actually make some money, then it's not going to come out of one unit. Certainly not a unit tucked down a back street in a suburb of Chester. So that would definitely be that is, I feel like, in my head. I'm going to open my eyes. The summer will be over because it's July, and then before we know it's Christmas. So I feel like in the new year, that's when I'm going to really get my head down into going that way.
Yeah, so I think I saw something on one of your posts that you were talking about potentially expanding it. But have you thought about franchising at all? Do you know much about franchising?
I don't know anything about franchising, to be honest. I don't really know anything about it at all.
Right. Well, I could probably help you with that. I mean, most things are franchisable, you know, most businesses. I mean, me and Jake were talking about this earlier about what is franchisable and what isn't. If it's something that can be replicated and you've got some systems in place, then basically you can be franchised.
Is it ultimately a brand?
It's not necessarily a brand, it's a system, really. If you can replicate your business, it doesn't become a brand until you start getting established. You know, once you build that brand. So, I mean, you're doing the right thing at the moment. You're building your social media, and that's, in turn, is not only building your own personal brand, because it's personal to you, so everyone knows who you are.
Yeah.
But also you're building the brand for your business as well, because you're now getting that following. You're doing lots of content on there, and you're getting quite a lot of sort of feedback and comments back as well. So you can build a brand from one store, but they won't necessarily attract the franchises once you go into that market. It's all the other stuff that comes with it, but it certainly helps, because anyone interested in the franchise will look your name up, see what you're posting, try and sort of build a picture up of you, because at the end of the day they're investing, certainly in the early years, in you as opposed to the system or the business that you got, if that sounds...
If somebody were to buy a franchise, then what technically are they buying? Are they buying a business model?
Yeah. They're buying the systems, the model, your time and effort that you've invested in your business over the last few years to get it to the point of where it is at the moment. So the menu that you've got, the ideas that you've got, the system in place, so your operations manual, if you've got an operations manual, if you haven't, it's something you have to put together, but the operations manual is something not to be scared of. It's pretty much, if you've got staff and you've written down a load of things that they have to carry out each day, it's a compilation of all of that, and things like, you know, risk assessment. So if you've got each year you carry out risk assessment, or, you know, what happens in the event of an emergency, all of those sort of things, and it's just put together into an operations manual, and you're selling that expertise to someone who, you know, believes largely in you and your ability to help them grow a business. So there'd be another you around somewhere that's looking for an idea, and well, you know, this is very franchisable, by the way, and there is a similar business out there that does kind of Toasties. I don't know a lot about it. I think they're in Manchester somewhere. I've seen a couple of their stores, but
Northern Soul. It's very different. It's
right.
a toastie, but it's very different. I mean, it's a similar product, but it's a very different business. They've got 2 units now.
Right. Okay.
There's a few in London as well. There's only them in Manchester, as far as I'm aware. There's quite a lot of food trucks floating around the country. You know, mobile units, and then there's a handful in London.
Yeah, but I mean, it's definitely franchisable, and it's an easier route than you trying to raise money and invest in it yourself.
How much say or control do you have over the business, though?
A lot. Yeah. I mean, in short, basically the franchise agreement outlines everything that they can do, what they can't do, what procedures they have to follow, because basically, say you wanted to take this store and plonk it somewhere else. So we would have the same signage, you would have whatever guidelines you've got in terms of the shop layout, how you want it to look, what suppliers that they have to use, the fee structure, pretty much everything, what uniforms they wear. There is a little bit of wiggle room, and obviously because you're new to it, it's always best to give some sort of flexibility in it, because it's your first one and you're going to make mistakes, and it's best to be upfront with them at the beginning to say, look, I'm going to learn from this process, and you're at the early stage with me, and you're going to kind of come along for the ride, but you're coming along at the early stage, so you're getting a better deal than you would otherwise, maybe in 5 years.
Yeah.
And that's how I
did it.
They
break the rules?
Then,
what if you go and wander into one of your franchises in disguise?
Well,
not happy.
well, I can talk from experience, because not every franchise works. It's like any other business. Franchising reduces the risk of a failure rate, but as yourself, in food hospitality business, there's a very high percentage of failures. In fact, it's probably the highest business failure rate of any kind of business out there. Franchising diminishes that, it reduces it, but it doesn't take it away. And one of the reasons that stores can fail is because a franchisee tries to kind of deviate from the franchise agreement.
Personalise it.
And what you'll attract is that in franchising, it attracts entrepreneurs. People, or at least people think they're entrepreneurs as well. And they will always look for a way of earning extra money. And franchising can be quite rigid in what they're supposed to follow and what they're not supposed to do, and in the fee structure. So you will inevitably get some individuals who would try and take advantage of it. They think they can divert the tills, or they can use different suppliers. But if you've got the right checks in place, you will eventually find them. It won't necessarily take you too long. Because if they use your supply chain, which they have to, then the reality is that you'll see from your suppliers, whether they're ordering from them, you can see from their GPs, because they'll be using your till system, which you'll have access to.
I used to run pubs,
Right, so you
buy a bottle of vodka and you're going to know about it, because of course everything changes, doesn't it, instantly in your stock system.
I mean, they get away with it in the short term, but eventually, I mean, the thing is that if they get caught and it's a major breach, they can lose an awful lot of money. So I'll give you an example that one of our franchises, probably 4 or 5 years ago, they paid $130,000 for all of our franchise, and we found them doing exactly that. They were basically not putting things through the till, they were using different suppliers, they were effectively lowering their sales, so they didn't have to pay us our fees. We caught them. We gave them...
Killed them.
You get very disappointed, don't you? So it's because at the end of the day, I've built an overhead to support the franchise network, and if they're not paying me, then
well, they take money out of your pocket.
Yeah, exactly. It's stealing. It's theft. Whichever way you look at it, it's theft. But they ended up losing that whole franchise. But they got nothing back for that.
Wow.
So they lost their entire investment because they broke the rules, and they continued to break the rules despite the warnings. Because you do give them warnings, you don't just go in and just move them out the door, and then they've gone, oh shit.
Messed up, so And how is the financial structure then? How does it work? Do they have to have their own unit? How does it work?
No, you help them with the unit. So, I mean, a lot of franchises work in different ways, and you have to pick and choose on what works for you, and your personal, your kind of personal circumstances. So, if you want to be heavily involved, then you basically pick the unit either with them or for them, and say, look, it's likely to work in this kind of location. You can also go as far as saying you must use my shop fit team to do the shop fit, so you get consistency in shop fit. You might even project manage that shop fit yourself, because I mean, you've done it once. I mean, you learn an awful lot when you open up your first one, because you do everything. So I'm assuming that you pretty much got hands on with all of this.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot from my first few stores, because I was there helping doing the painting. I've done all the planning applications. You know, picking the equipment was, you know, again, an eye opener. And you make a lot of mistakes. You get ripped off sometimes, and you learn and move on. But the idea is that you've learned a lot of your mistakes.
Yeah.
And
so you can pass on your expectations.
Exactly.
I guess in some ways it's consulting, but it's consulting on a sort of on a given idea, I guess, almost, is it?
Yeah. Yeah, and you need to look at the kind of market to determine your kind of fee structure for what that might be. But you know, if this was taken to another location, probably maybe more in a prominent position, you know, again, you'd be looking at. I've seen these franchises going for 100,000 plus. You know, it's not cheap franchising.
No.
And it is an investment.
Who buys a franchise then? Is it somebody who wants a business but isn't necessarily particularly creative, I guess, in their own, you know, ideas?
Real mixed bag, yeah. I mean, I used to think it was literally single unit franchisees who were just looking to earn, you know, a wage. You know, so they were working for someone, and now it's like it's just going to replace that wage. And you do get those. You do get people who are only interested in one unit, and all they're looking to do is replace the salary that they used to earn being employed because they've got fed up with working for someone else.
Yeah.
So you've got that's at the kind of basic level, but then you've got ones who are more entrepreneurial in their mindset, and they might own multiple businesses. They might not even work in the store. Most of our franchises don't work in the stores. They see it more as an investment.
Yeah. So
they have a manager there, or they even get us to manage those stores.
Okay. Like it's Domino's. Is Domino's a franchise? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Domino's is obviously one of the big boys.
Very successful franchise.
Yeah. But once you get to a certain size, then you can start generating more income from it, because you can start then determining things like, right, you have to get your uniforms. You have to get your uniforms from our supplier. You then potentially can get sort of overrides from your supply chain.
Basically, you're selling on the stock to a certain degree.
Yeah. So the bigger you get, the better discount you get from your suppliers. You pass some of that on to your network and keep some of it back for yourself and for, you know, reinvesting into the business, because it's a big investment in franchising.
And so you're I mean, obviously your successful franchises walk and go, right? Mm-hmm. And what would one pay for a franchise there?
It varies. I would say probably our cheapest one would be a unit, probably. Yeah, if you took it out of your back kitchen there and just took this bit here, we'd probably charge 120 grand for that.
And so again, but obviously in layman's terms, what do they get from that then? So it could be, again, it's up to them, is it? So they can either get sort of a master plan that they work alongside, or you can go in and say this is how it's going to be done.
Yeah, I mean, for our franchises, we do it's a turnkey operation. So basically, we would do everything. We would even recruit the initial staff for it. So they will literally turn up on day one with the key and be able to walk straight in. The staff are there. The staff have been trained. They've also been trained as well. Or if they don't want to work in it, we'll train whoever it is that they designate.
And do they train in another unit?
Yeah, they come to one of our training stores. So we've got a training manager who will look after them. But for you, so for instance, they would probably come here. So you'd say to them, okay, you come here, spend 2-3 weeks with me here. When we've got your store almost up and running, I'll come over and work in that store with you for a week. So, you know, we make sure all the final bits are finalised in there, and that you then bed them into their own business in their own environment, so they become more comfortable in their own environment as well. So there's a bit of training here, a bit of training there, and some of it's just paperwork. You know, you'd be surprised that most people don't even know anything about basics on HR or employing staff or
EHO.
Yeah. I mean, you'd be surprised. I mean, a lot of people don't know diddly squat about it. And I didn't know a lot about it. And it's funny, the bigger you get, the more some of these compliance
they have to be more thorough.
become very thorough and
the more
very
you work,
hard on you.
the more at risk you are is the problem, I think, because I learned, certainly when I was working for one of the bigger pub groups, it wasn't that they didn't want to kill someone, it's that if they did kill someone, they didn't want to be liable for it. So that's where the paper trail, that's what the paper trail is, isn't it, ultimately?
Yeah, and also, you have the EHO that come in if you're a smaller business, quite often they're a little bit forgiving and they give you the opportunity to put something right. If you're a bigger business, they say you've got no excuse.
Yeah.
You should have had this sort of day. You've got the resources. You should have done that, and then you get want.
Yeah.
And that was hard as well because I was still on the mindset of hold on, pick it up.
Oh, hold on. Not Chester EHO, not the new girl.
I find them really inconsistent, to be honest with you. Whatever city you go to, they're all working to the same model, or they're supposed to be.
Depends on the day and the person, definitely, 100%.
They have different interpretations of the same rules.
Yeah.
So we'll have one that can come in to say one in our stores in, say, Liverpool, and it'll just say, you can't use that to wipe out those pans. Okay, all right, we'll change that to this cloth. Yeah, that's what we want you to do. Then we get a visit in Chester. Why are you using that cloth?
Yeah.
You should have been using the scrubber.
And it's just so broad, isn't it? Again, it's just so broad. I just find that things that are important to one aren't important to another. So, they'll come in and I've just had one, she come in and rollicked me over 2 things, but somebody was here 18 months ago and those 2 things were in place then. So clearly they're not of,
I know. Sometimes it's almost like they have to find something.
Well, they do now because you have to pay them to bring them back. So once upon a time they came back for a visit, whereas now if they give you less stars and you want them to come back and raise your stars, which you can, it costs you £180. So it's all a big scam anyway, like everything else.
Money generating,
it's government money. Because if they really wanted you to do it properly, why didn't they just give you a list?
Yeah.
I mean, it's that simple. Check off the list and then they can come in and check, and if there's something wrong, they give you to the end of the week and they come back. It's not like that anymore, so...
Yeah, and you seem to have a licence for everything now as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So how do you balance all this with family and personal life and stuff?
I mean, I've always been in hospitality, so I've always worked evenings before, and I don't work many evenings now. I only really do events. So, frankly, when I skip out of here at 5 o'clock every day, I feel like I'm part-time, even on a 6-day week. So no matter what, I am, it doesn't feel that taxing because stress. Obviously, there's more stress to it because it's your own business. The roller coaster of emotions that is never knowing what you're going to earn from day to day, for example. Yeah. And, the outgoings are far greater than I ever prepared for, with your alcohol licence and your music licence and all of the things that just keep coming at you. So that's emotional, to say the least. But, on the whole, I find it, on the whole, I find it quite easy. The work is easy and keeping on top of things mostly is easy, but then I give myself a harder time working for myself than if I worked for somebody else. Allow myself to cut any corners. So I've got I'm always going to be a voice in my head going, you're not doing a good enough job of it. So
it's that voice in the head, isn't it? It's a bugger, isn't it? It's probably the hardest thing is that it's, I was saying to Jake, I've just started going to the gym, but in work in hours, and I never done it before because I'd always feel guilty about leaving work.
Yeah.
So I had to kind of change my mindset because I wasn't going in the early part of the day because I want to see my kids in the morning.
Yeah.
And I also want to see them at night time as well. So I kind of cut out that part. So I only had that bit left.
Yeah.
So I had to kind of say, well, if I think of it, it's still work.
Yeah.
It's me just getting fitter and looking after myself, and if I'm fitter, I hopefully have more energy and I work better. And I also started listening to podcasts while I was in the gym, so I was kind of telling myself I was learning as well.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah, I closed yesterday because the young girl who's been working for me for the last 6 months has finally gone off to do her proper job, and so I worked, and she gave me a day off on Mondays. And so I worked last Monday, and of course I had a banger of a Monday. So this Monday I closed because you can only keep going for so long on a 7-day week, and just spent the entire day wondering how much money I was missing out on. So absolutely. There's you can't get away from it. I mean, there's no chance in hell of me having a holiday within the next probably 2 years. I took one last year and it was not worth it. I closed for it. It just wasn't worth it, frankly. So,
I remember getting phone calls from Go Fresco when I was trying to lie on the beach and the coffee machine had broken. And
a day off's not a day off.
It was flooding.
Of course.
I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, and staff won't hesitate to message you and say, I can't find the da-da-da, but then 10 minutes later message you and say, oh, I found it. So it's like, you never get to switch off. And of course, whenever I pay a member, it's not a massive income here, it's a cafe tucked away in Hanbridge. So if I do pay, there have been days, and certainly in the beginning, days where I was paying a member of staff, we took less than, I had to pay out on staff. Not so much now, but yeah, I'm taking on a member of staff. I've got a chap trialing tomorrow, so I'm taking on a member of staff. But I've sort of, again, anxiety-led probably, because I need to make it very clear to him he won't make much of a living to start, and there's room to grow. However, that growth period, like say if I start opening an evening again and I put him on the evening, the first 4 we might not see a soul. So trying to figure all of that out is a real juggling act, I find. And if I'm not in the building and it's been quiet, then I beat myself up over it. But you can't always be there, can you?
That's one of the hardest things to do, is to kind of silence that voice in your head and get away from that guilt trip of either having some time for yourself, but or just not always being in your business.
Yeah.
So folks, make sure you tune in next Friday to listen to part 2. In the meantime, if you want to find out more about Laura, her business, you can follow her on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at MeltdownChester. If you don't follow me already, you can find me on Instagram at Pheby, on Facebook as the franchise entrepreneur, and on Twitter at PhebeDes. I share daily tips and vlogs on business, franchising and entrepreneurship, so make sure you check that out. Let me know in the comment if you enjoyed the different format, and if you have any suggestions for future episodes or people that we can invite. And I'll see you again next week for the second part of my inspiring meeting with Laura.